right, everyone. So, welcome. Today, I have one of my clinicians on staff here, Suzanne. She is a registered nurse who specializes in pediatrics, and I really wanted to get her on talking today because we just collaborated to release a new free ebook. It's an incredible resource that we put together, totally free on the Whole Body Healing with Jen website under the family program page. And we really want to get this out there, want to get people reading this ebook because there's so much important information. And it's our first step in putting together a more comprehensive program for families, parents, and kids because we really want to start intervening earlier in our clients' lives. And I'm going to have Suzanne talk about why that is. The topic of the ebook is how to manage picky eating. So, hi, Suzanne. You can introduce
Hi.
yourself, and then I just want you to share a little bit about why you think this is such an important topic to be talking about.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Suzanne Ballestino. I'm a registered nurse, and I live in Massachusetts. And I have two kids of my own, and I have, one child who, had a long period of chronic sickness and illness and disorder, and now she's doing great because of, a lot of the things that Jen and I worked on with her. So I'm really passionate about this, especially with kids.
Yes.
Prevention, right? We see a lot of clients in their adolescence and in their, adulthood with so many chronic diseases, disorders, and symptoms. But every time we do a full assessment, we're almost hearing the same thing, right? We go from, birth until now, and I keep hearing, yes, I was a picky eater. Yes, I was a picky eater, right? And we see these chronic symptoms along with an accompanying a lot of other symptoms that a lot of parents and even myself didn't understand kind of coexisted together, right? And this goes on for years. But yeah, picky eating, I mean, it's huge. It's not really normal. I mean, picky eating here and there is normal, right? I don't want the vegetable or I don't want the squash. Okay. But if it's chronic and it's constant and it's almost every food, and your kid will only eat a few foods, 4 or 5 foods, and they fight you at every meal, and there's other things going on with them, really start to look at what's happening, because you can go for years and years without understanding what's happening with your child and thinking it's something totally different. And then other symptoms start to pop up and it really becomes a chronic problem. So,
Yeah.
prevention and education and really figuring out this thing from the beginning. So we're not seeing them in their adolescence and in their teens and in their adulthood with, 10, 15, 20 years of chronic problems that, have just plagued them their whole life.
Yeah.
We want to
Yeah.
get to it right away.
Absolutely. No, I think that's so well said. I mean, this is something we talk about all the time, and we just see, Suzanne is seeing one-on-one clients as well and doing their assessments and doing their intakes. And it's just a pattern we see over and over and over again. Not only are adult clients who almost universally had stomach issues or picky eating tendencies when they were young, but then also when we do get families in, no matter what they're coming to us with, right, any range of symptoms, there usually also is a component of picky eating. And there are reasons for this, right? There are patterns to this, there are reasons for this. And like Suzanne said, it's like, it's okay for a kid to have a preference. Sometimes a kid just won't like a certain vegetable, and it's like, that's okay. It's okay to have personal preferences. But when we say picky eating, there tends to be a very specific like types of foods that kids will and won't eat. And this connects to the underlying root cause of what is actually going on. And something we did in the very first section of this ebook was we made a little quiz of like, okay, does your kid tend to eat these foods and does your kid tend to reject these other foods? Right. And so that's a little quiz that you can take when you download the ebook. But as Suzanne was saying, I think that these tend to come with a lot of other issues like emotional, behavioral, and other issues. And there are reasons for that, and so if we target the picky eating, we can actually get at a lot of these other issues as well. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit, Suzanne, about some of the other common things that come along with picky eating that you see.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, I mean, picky eating might be one of the first things that you recognize, right? Or it might be your child is sensitive to certain clothing or will only wear certain types of clothing, whether it's the fabric or won't wear jeans or won't wear something, with a snap or a zipper or a buckle. Like those are types of, sensitivities. Also some, skin sensitivities, whether it's heat, whether it's cold, whether they don't like to be touched, whether they get, a small paper cut and act like their arm is cut off, so like these over exaggerated symptoms, my way or the highway type of kid, someone who can't be consoled. If something small happens, just you don't understand why. You're sitting there. Why are they, freaking out over the smallest things, right? So, the other things, emotional sensitivities, digestive problems are huge, right? So constipation, diarrhea, stomach aches all the time, not being able to sleep well, those sorts of things also start popping up. Not wanting to go to school, not playing well with friends, social, sensitivities or insecurities. Those types of things also we see, coexist with the picky eating. So it's not just picky eating, these other things go along with that. And when you start to see many, many symptoms that are popping up all together, they mean something, right? So
Yeah.
we need to start looking at these things right away, because you will be in and out of the pediatrician's office monthly, yearly. This can go on for years and years until they hit adolescence, hit puberty, and then something triggers them and things go downhill even more. And, these symptoms just progress to lots and lots of other things. So
Yeah.
getting to it right at the beginning is going to be key.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is so important to really be clear about that, like the fact that we have like kids menus, you know what I mean? And the fact that there is this kind of tendency of like, oh, oh, we'll give the kid the mac and cheese, or like the kid can have the crackers and like other people will eat like the meat or the vegetables or other things. Like
Yeah.
this has become so common, right? I mean, all these kids with different learning disabilities, with different social issues, right? Like kids really struggling with their social skills. I mean, you talk to any teacher, and these issues are becoming more and more pervasive, right? Like kids are really struggling. We have so many kids on IEPs and other kinds of specialized educational plans. And it's wonderful that these resources exist, right? Because, of course, a lot of kids do really need these. But the fact that it is becoming so normalized and so pervasive, it doesn't actually mean it is normal, And so I think a lot of people are going to really recognize their kid in like what you are saying, right? That the 7 sensitivities, it's like the full spectrum of issues. It's not just the picky eating in reality, right? It's also the emotions and the textures and the social skills and all these kind of stuff that kids are just kind of hyper sensitive, right? But I think a lot of people maybe have this idea of like, oh, that's just my kid, right? Oh, they're just kind of like have a lot of special needs, right?
Right.
And the reality is that there actually are deeper root causes for these things. There are reasons why these things tend to come together, and they are actually signs of deeper underlying imbalances. It's not necessarily just like, oh, my kid is just like that. Even if it has become common, it's not actually normal, so to speak. And this is something we really talk about extensively in the ebook, is like, okay, so yeah, this is an issue that makes you tend to dread dinner time, right? And have like this whole battle with your kid all the time, and it tends to cause a lot of stress in the home and things like that. But like, let's actually get to understanding the bigger picture here of what is going on with your kid and why all these different types of sensitivities tend to come together, and why these kinds of symptoms are predictors for developing more severe complex chronic diseases later in life. So we give a long explanation of that in the ebook that I think is really easy to understand, and will help you kind of solve the mystery of like what is going on exactly and why it's so important to intervene as soon as you can. That being said, though, like the intervening does mean that you have to make changes in your client's diet because, like, sorry guys, spoiler alert, but this has to do with imbalance in the gut and your child's gut health, right? If you want to understand how all these things are connected, I really encourage you to download that ebook and read about it in more detail. But the primary intervention is dietary, right? Which when you're dealing with a picky eater is easier said than done, let's just say. And I'm sure that parents of picky eaters can attest to this. So do you just want to give like a couple tips, you know, that you feel like are really effective in terms of helping get over this picky eating hump and like starting to intervene in the most effective ways?
Yeah, I mean, starting as early as possible is the best way to do it, because trying to change things when they're 4, 5, 6, 13, right? That's really, really difficult when they're in that mode of already eating certain foods and now their body just doesn't want to consume those foods,
Yeah.
right? So, they have intolerances to certain things, and then they start with aversions to certain things. Their nervous system gets out of whack and says and is fearful of eating certain things because they
Yeah.
just don't feel good when they eat. Right. So that's where the meal time starts to dwindle down, where they'll only eat, 3 or 4 foods ever, and most of the time it's something with carbohydrates or something with sugar, right? Or cereal or bagels, that sort of thing. They won't eat meat, eggs, veggies, so intervening very early is going to be, the best way to do it. Because you're the parent and you can put on the table what you want to put on the table and you can buy what you want to buy. And I know it's tough. It's very frustrating and it causes chaos in the home sometimes because it's always a fight, right?
Yeah.
But either fight the fight now or fight the fight later.
Yeah.
And now is a better time. It's better for the child. It's better for the whole household and, the life of everybody in the home. Trust me when I tell you that you need to just put the hammer down, right? And, tough love. And your child will not starve. Your child will eat something, right? So it's so much easier to give in. It's so much easier to give in because you want your child to eat. You want to see them happy and you want to see them joyful when they're eating. You don't want to see them all annoyed and frustrated and throwing their food and hating it and crying. And of course, we don't want to see that, but it's in their best interest. And as a parent, that's what we need to do when we, realize what's happening. And, think about it as a parent, did you have digestive issues? Did you have issues like this growing up? Because then your child's, at risk for the same things. And, oh yeah, I can see what's happening here. So really just watching what's going on, keeping a log of what's happening with your child, especially if they're having, digestive issues and when they're having them. So you have some sense of what is going on because you think you're going to remember and you just don't.
Yeah.
Right. Keeping as calm as possible, setting the rules and following them because these kids know how to manipulate you, right? They do. They know how to, pull at our heartstrings. So, the intervening and recognizing these things early. And that's the thing that we don't recognize these things because it's not in our face, right? It's like we said, it's normalized. Oh, he or she is just a picky eater. So this is what he likes, but he doesn't sleep. He has stomachache. He has all these other things, but you don't put the connection together. And that's what we really want to do is connect the dots for you. So that's why this ebook is so important because it gives you a full range of, what's happening with your child. And, you might not recognize it, but we recognize it. We absolutely recognize what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are just such golden nuggets, and stuff that people really need to hear. And it is tough. Like parents love their kids and they want their kids to be happy. And it is hard to set rules and stick to them. Like it is emotionally taxing, like parenting is tough. It's super tough. So I think, it's really great that you keep emphasizing like the earlier we can intervene, the better, even at the point of like weaning, you know what I mean? And there are ways to wean your kids that will help promote the healthiest gut possible and will stop even the development of the picky eating in the first place. I mean, that's ideal, right? But again, like the earlier you can get in, the more control you have over your child's diet, the easier it's going to be to intervene. So whether that's 4 or 7 or 9, and not that there's ever a time where it's not possible to correct these things.
Right.
It's always possible, right? We see
Yes.
people heal as adults all the time, even with this
Yes.
history. But yes, of
Yes.
course, like if you are kind of on the fence now in terms of like, well, maybe I'll just wait until next year, like don't do it now as early as possible, and it does
Right.
require some tough love. And as parents, I think like there's a lot of things that you can be flexible on in terms of like house rules or expectations or things. And yeah, you don't want to just be constantly authoritative with your kids. I mean, that is a recipe for a rebellious kid for sure, right? But at the same time, the things that you do want to make really solid rules about are things that relate to your kids' safety, right? And I would say personally that a child's like long-term health outcomes is an issue of safety, right? Like if you want to make sure that this kid is set up for as healthy a life as possible, like I think that is something to have tough love and like hard rules and boundaries around. And so I think like giving that pep talk that you just did is so, so valuable. Like this is the thing to like really make the ruling on in the home. But at the same time, like it is important to be calm, clear but calm, and manage your own emotional responses and all that kind
Yes.
of stuff. And we have at the end of the ebook we have this long list. I think it's like 6 steps that we have for like ways to start intervening with correcting the picky eating pattern. And this really does have to do, and there are things to start working on and eliminating to get to the root causes of this issue in the ebook. Because once you do correct the root cause, which again really do start in the gut, the child is not going to be a picky eating forever, picky eater
Right.
forever, right? Like that,
Yeah.
it's not a battle you're going to have to fight forever. It's going to be tough for a period of time, but then you're going to get
Yes.
over the hump, and your child is going to be transformed. So it is really worth the hard work now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if the work is not done early on, then these kids are at risk for so many symptoms and diseases and disorders,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
When they have food sensitivities and those sensitivities are damaging their intestinal wall,
Yeah.
then or we know that they're going to have many more problems. They're going to be
Yeah.
at the doctors. They're going to have the procedures. They're going to be on
Yeah.
the medications. They're going to be in, therapy. They're going to be
Yeah.
in problems in school. They're going to be on an IEP. I mean, it's a long, long list of things that you could have, intervened with now,
Yeah.
and just done the work now, because you're going to do the work later and it's
Yeah.
going to be much, much worse for you and your child.
Yeah.
And so, I can't stress it enough that just recognizing these things and putting this type of work in
Yeah.
now is really the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love your passion, Suzanne. I think it's so important. I think it's so needed in this sphere because so much of the health and nutrition and wellness world is focused on adults, like after the damage has been done, and
Yeah.
like I said, of
Yes.
course, like people can always recover, but gosh, like how much suffering could we save, if we were to
Absolutely.
just intervene as young as possible. And so Suzanne is really spearheading this family program for parents and kids that we are developing at Whole Body Healing. We have plans, hopefully over the fall or winter to be launching some mini courses as well as some more intensive coaching programs for families. So definitely stay tuned for those. And if you download the ebook, you will get on a mailing list that you will get the first announcements about these programs as we roll them out. But in the meantime, Suzanne is accepting one-on-one clients. So you can get on her schedule directly on my website. And she is ready to help you hold your hand as much as you need through this process, because it is hard. And Suzanne has gone through it herself and she knows what works. And she has seen the incredible results that can happen if you really stick with it. So yeah, I guess, are there any last things you want to share, Suzanne, before we wrap up?
No, it's just, it again, I've been through it myself. I've been through it with my own daughter. I wish I had seen this, the signals, you know, before, which I look back now and I say, yep, those were the symptoms. That's what was going on.
Yeah.
But you know what? We did the work, and she is now going to college. She is happy. She can go out to eat with her friends. You know,
Yeah.
she knows her body, which is great. I mean, she learned so much through the process. And, you know, just to see her happy and healthy that's all I could ever ask for. That's all we want as parents for our
Yeah.
kids. So yeah, do it now, get the ebook, and let's start the process for your child because it's important.
Ah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for spending this time talking with me, Suzanne. It's always a delight.
Yes, it is. Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah.